and welcome to our session on edge computing, business value from edge computing. My name is Harry Forbes. I'm from ARC Advisory Group. This session will feature two presentations, actually three if you count me. I'm going to have a few remarks, just kind of broadly to frame the question, and then we're going to have two excellent presentations, one from Khalid El-Sheikh of Al Khorayef Petroleum, who's going to be talking about artificial lift applications, and one from Cargill from Dominic DeKerf, talking about lifecycle for their systems. And then that will be followed by a panel discussion where we'll be joined by folks I'll introduce later from Schneider Electric, Universal Automation, and VMware. And following that, we'll have Q&A. So before we start, let's see if I can work the clicker. Anybody can. Housekeeping points, please. Silence your devices. And also do provide feedback for sessions that you have attended. Believe me, from ARC's point of view, we really look at the feedback, and everybody looks at it because Andy looks at it in great detail. So if you have feedback, and you want to improve this event for your own purposes, feel free to stick some feedback into the app because, believe me, it gets a lot of attention. Okay. All right, so I'm just going to, I think I have about 3 or 4 slides, not very many. But all the hype about edge computing, who could have seen it coming? The introduction of the industrial internet 10 or 12 years ago had a vision that was pretty much edge bare. The idea was everything would be aggregated in the cloud. The cloud had unlimited storage, unlimited computation, unlimited capability for doing analytics, so the cloud was going to aggregate everything and do it analytics on a large scale on a large number of similar assets. When that vision met the real world of industrial production, what happened is that applications found that they needed continuous connectivity, or they needed local analytics because of latency issues or intermittent connectivity. And so there were issues that forced the applications to become localized, and that created a need for edge cloud integration. Now, this is the industrial view from our world of manufacturing. So it brought out the edge. Where is the edge? So the cliche that really became then, we had a cloud edge model or a cloud fog model. But then the next buzzword was, by the way, all these slides are on, you'll be able to get. Where is the edge? What edge are you talking about? That's kind of a tired cliche. But to do that, because there were very different views of the edge in, say, in manufacturing or in telecommunications or in automotive. They were not all identical or clearly defined. This is a taxonomy that was developed by the Linux Foundation. I just have it here as an example, not to say it is the taxonomy, because if you were at the open source session yesterday, the Eclipse Foundation has a very similar kind of taxonomy for the edge. But with a really what they call diplomatically a service provider edge, which is really a telecom network edge, and then a user edge, which they break into 3 segments, being on-prem data center, smart device, meaning in our case maybe an industrial PC or larger, and then constrained devices, which is a lot of our automation world. So in ARC, we focus a lot on the more left side in terms of our market research for this space. And then again, I'm using Linux Foundation as an example, but they don't just take this as an example, not as definitive. there's a family of software projects that they are developing for the edge, some of which you'll be familiar with. I'll point out in particular Project Eve, which is a edge virtualization platform. And these tend to be more in manufacturing and retail. The other applications tend to be more in that what they call service provider edge, which I would just call as a telecommunications edge. Again, this is an example. As I said yesterday, the open source world is huge and diverse, so there's similar models and similar sets of projects for other foundations and so forth. At ARC, we have our own definition, which focuses on more, as I said, the left-hand side, the more constrained devices, where we're talking about devices that used to be just protocol converters and now have compute capability, some application capability. And what we're finding is it gets a little more confusing from an analyst standpoint, because if you recall from maybe some of your visits in the showcase, the infrastructure is becoming smarter and smarter. So infrastructure providers, mention any names, but one of our sponsors was Belden, who's pretty well known for industrial infrastructure. There's another company you might have heard of called Cisco, also very similar infrastructure capability that adds compute and storage into the infrastructure. So it's not as cut and dried as it used to be, but there's still an edge infrastructure that it can be buried into your networking, or can consist of a bunch of devices at the edge. We did, ARC conducted a pretty extensive survey. This was last year. And what we found, the manufacturers, the majority are already doing some kind of edge application and are piloting, or it's a very hot area for them in terms of where they're putting their efforts now for their industrial IoT or for Industry 4.0 activities. And finally, if I get the clicker right, yes. There's a bunch of, this is self-promotion, but there is a set of market research that ARC provides. As I said, we tend to focus more on the constrained device space and edge compute, up to an industrial PC kind of capability. But we look at this infrastructure, and what we do in our market research is we put counts and numbers and dollar values and market shares and things like that together for both. Then these are generally the hardware, but also some software for the edge. So these studies are available from ARC, and that's as far as I'll promote it. But I would say if there's feedback from folks in the supplier side of the community, we're always happy to hear more. And as I said, as the infrastructure gets smarter, the definition of these kind of studies change over time. But that's as much as I want to say. Thank you for listening. And now we'll turn to some real-world experience. And so our first speaker is going to be Khalid El-Sheikh from El Khorayef. He's a VP of El Khorayef Petroleum. And he's going to talk about submersible artificial lift in the oil field, which is something you can assume that I don't know anything about, so please feel free to explain it as you would. So let's welcome Khalid.